Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World. So we are going to dig into what's been happening in terms of sector investment during January 2023. So this is probably not a complete list, but basically I sort of go through and every month try and keep up to date with blockchain game investments and metaverse investments and anything sort of community based and platforms, anything that I think is sort of vaguely in the game space. So it's not purely games. Obviously blockchain games are wider than just sort of the games themselves, although as we'll see, the majority of stuff is gaming. Anyway, so this is the raw data I've got, and I sort of crunch it all down. So for the whole month, I got $139 million in terms of investment, and we can have a look at how that looks compared to 2022. So here's the graph for 2022. So we can see, I guess everyone knows, a year of two halves. So January to May, pretty big. In fact, May massive in terms of the money being raised in the sector. May was when Luna sort of went bust, and Three Arrows Capital hedge fund went bust, and it was sort of downhill all the way. So we're still in what people are calling crypto winter, although crypto prices are picking up a little bit. We'll see how long that lasts. But we can see December was actually by far and away the smallest funding month in terms of the sector in 2022, and January has sort of continued there. So roughly the same. We can sort of look into, there is a bit of difference, but a lot of this sort of stuff is, you just month on month, you sort of get some variations, but the big trends are obviously what you're looking for. So you see this time last year, over $1 billion invested in the sector, and here we are, we're under a third of that. That's how these things go. It comes in waves. The other thing I would point out is this is when deals are being announced. So it may be that deals are being signed now, but they might not be announced for a month, for 2 months. There's some deals I know that are currently ongoing that have sort of maybe not. Well, they started 6 months ago, but there are sort of deals that basically everyone known has been sorted out and they haven't been announced yet. You don't have to announce deals in most cases. People announce deals to sort of drive interest into their project. So there's no legal reason why companies have to announce funding deals if they're not public companies. That's a sort of extra layer of sort of fun to try and unpick what's going on. Anyway, let's look in more detail. Okay, so in this graph we're looking at the deal value per type. So it's the same money roughly. I mean, some of these types of sort of categories, I suppose, of these deals, not necessarily very clear. So sometimes there's a little bit of discrepancy. But basically, we can see, I've broken this down into what I've tried to think of as sort of primitive sort of categories of where the money's going. So we have blue in games. The majority of money sort of tend to go to games in most months. We have red community, yellow metaverse. We had a lot of metaverse stuff at the sort of start of last year. Platforms. Others, which is sort of tools, payment, wallets, it's picks and shovels as people like to call them, and then blockchain, which is sort of ecosystem funds. And again, a bit difficult to sort of exactly work out what some of these are. So you sort of make a best judgment really. So we can see here, January and December, pretty much the same games are sort of the majority of it. Had a whole bunch of community stuff in December, a bit more metaverse stuff and some platform stuff. So, but that's basically the breakdown of what's going on there. Some months just get a lot of blue, it's a lot of game investment. Depends on the big projects. Obviously, at the moment, as we'll see, the rounds are sort of smaller, sort of rounds. So if we see by stage, so this is what we call sort of the investment stage. So basically, you start off with sort of pre-seed and seed. They're in blue. Then you go through an A round, a B round, a C round. You can do D rounds, but they're sort of more less common in this sector. Then we have what I call strategic investment. So this is just people it's sort of like people sometimes call it growth investment or something like that. It's not necessarily linked to a stage. Normally comes after people have done sort of B's and C's. So there's that ecosystem, which is basically funding sort of blockchain ecosystems, and then the red is the people doing IDOs, token sales, or NFT sales. So that has been big. I mean, certainly big in May when Yuka Labs did its big land sale. It's kind of fallen away a little bit. So we can see again, the majority of this stuff at the moment is blue, so it's seed, so it's early stage. We had a bit of strategic in December, a bit more A. So generally what you'd expect is seed is the smallest fundraise, and you're going to have more of that. And then as you go up to A, B, and C, you get fewer of those deals done, but the money being invested generally gets larger. So you know, when you're in a building stage, you tend to see a lot of C's and A's. When you're in a sort of growth phase, you get a lot of B's and C's. So we can sort of see here at the growth stage, we get a lot of these C stage funding. So OpenSea was a big one here. So these are companies raising money to scale really quickly. Obviously, that's not where we are in the market at the moment. So people aren't trying to raise C rounds. Not even a lot of B rounds at the moment. Strategic stuff is sort of quite important in the blockchain game space. So people are sort of coming in. Some of these big funders are coming in, and it's sort of not quite in the ABC sort of structure. It's sort of just a bit more just like sort of money for the long term. Okay, deal by location. So this is deal value by location. So I should say, so we can see here again, North America, so US and Canada. Mainly US is just a lot of this. The money clearly is there. APAC, so Asian Pacific region, that doesn't include Vietnam, Philippines. I've broken those out separately because they had, you know, at certain points they were having quite a lot of deal funding. But APAC, mainly Singapore and Hong Kong. That's where the Chinese companies are based. Have some stuff in Europe over you know, in October and November. There was some European stuff, not very much at the moment. So mainly in January, a lot of blue, a little bit of stuff out of APAC. Also, I should say that includes Japan and South Korea. So there were some deals in South Korea and Japan. Japan's actually growing quite fast at the moment with this Oasis blockchain that's done a lot of funding. So a lot of this sort of pink recently has been around that project. Okay, now we're looking at the number of deals. So this is sort of different. This isn't the amount of money going in. This is the number of deals that have been announced. So we can see, you know, it's in a sense, it's sort of similar as the money flow, but not exactly the same. So in March last year was when we had the most deals announced. So like 45 deals. And although it sort of dropped off, it didn't drop off as much as the money did. So there's still deals being done. But just the sort of the money being raised has gone down, and that's what you expect in sort of a more uncertain market. People aren't pumping $300 million into OpenSea at a 13 billion valuation anymore. Clearly, that's, you know, that was now retrospectively looks as an overvalued deal. These things always look great in hindsight. Anyway, so what's going on here? Most of the deals are going into games. We can see, well, that's not a great surprise. We're looking at blockchain game sector, but there is other stuff. So what do we have? Has some, you know, say platform stuff, quite a lot of tools and wallet stuff going on. I mean, this is always sort of a solid chunk, solid number of deals. There's always people raising money for those sort of things, and they sort of depends a little bit on exactly what they're trying to do. But they tend not to involve enormous amounts of investment. The metaverse was bigger at this point here. The yellow bar. There's always a bit of metaverse stuff still going on. So it's sort of a bit of everything. In January. And actually, thing to point out is more deals announced in January than there were in December. Partly December, I always think is a little bit quiet because people are breaking off for holidays. So I wouldn't necessarily say this is a big trend and we're going to continue, you know, increasing. You know, 20 to 30 deals is roughly, you know, where the sector probably sits in terms of announced deals. So number of deals by stage. So you can see the first set of graphs we did were about the value, and now we're doing about the number of deals. So as ever, I say most of the deals, you know, the vast majority pretty much are seed deals. Actually, not quite in this month. So we had quite a bit of pickup of the IDOs and NFT sales. I think that's partly because the market's recovered from sort of the collapse in November. Not much going on then. So we have a bit of strategic stuff. There's always some, you know, strategic, or generally some strategic deals going through. So we had, you know, almost half seed, actually quite a lot of A's. So people are, you know, got their seed round out and shown some growth so they can get an A round out. No B's and C's. No ecosystem stuff at the moment. They tend to be the bigger deals. So the big money is not here at the moment. Clearly, that's where the market is. Number of deals by location. You know, again, US, North America is dominating, but not as much as it did in terms of the money in North America. So North America does dominate generally in terms of the number of deals, but it particularly over-indexes in terms of the amount of money being raised. So mainly in January we had stuff in Apex. So Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, and South Korea all had companies there, all announcing stuff. US, 11 deals there. So the difference here is sometimes it's not very clear where the project is based. So a lot of the more sort of blockchain-y companies, it's not, they don't really say where they're based. Maybe they're not based anywhere. Maybe they're just distributed. So that's why there's a drop off there. So there we go. That's what's going on for January. Obviously, January in and of itself, nothing very surprising there. It's going to take probably a few months of recovery, and even when sort of markets, people feel more confident, it will take a while for people to actually start announcing the deals that they've been doing when that people feel more confident. So there's always a bit of a lag, bit of an elastic band effect here. But we'll keep an eye on what's going on. Well, I am, because I think it's interesting. Hope you do too. See you again.